36 minutes ago, Iran says no deal imminent despite the progress in the talks with the U.S. So we'll see if it's actually imminent or not. And Russia strikes Kyiv with drones and hypersonic missiles, actually using a powerful Oceanic missile and everything like that. So it looks like they were pounding Kyiv in a powerful drone and missile attack. Marco Rubio discusses an Iran peace deal in the Strait of Hormuz, so he's fending off conservative critics of Iran deal as agreements appear imminent. And of course, I was watching yesterday one of the news stories on one of the other channels, and they were talking about how there seems to be some fracture in the Republican Party over a lot of things, including the ballroom and this peace deal and a number of other things as well. So I'm going to bring in my folks, see what they've got to say about a number of these stories. And by the way, 3 astronauts were set for Shenzhou 23 mission to Tianjin. So the first Hong Kong astronaut launches into space aboard the Chinese mission. So China sends astronaut on a year-long space mission as it has a 2030 moon landing. So Shenzhou 23 crew arrives at Tianjin as China maps its path to a 2030 lunar landing. So it looks like there might be a race to the moon and a race to other things going on, not just with Russia, but now with China and other folks as well. A building collapsed in Angeles City in the Philippines. 4 dead and 17, mostly workers, are still missing in a collapse of an unfinished hotel in the Philippines. So Philippine rescuers racing against time a day after the deadly building collapse. And like I said, Donald Trump is definitely in the news. And some folks are asking, could a Marxist take over conservative Colombia? The poll is saying yes. And 3 Uganda Revenue Authorities staff were killed in an elephant collision. So a minibus crashes into an elephant crossing road in Uganda National Park, killing 3 people. 4 were injured after the van hit the elephant near Karamu, and all along those lines. And at least 19 people taken to hospital after a strong smell reported at a Tokyo mall. So about 20 people injured after a man sprays an unknown substance near an ATM in a Tokyo mall. So this might be a terrorist attack. It might just be somebody that was doing some other kind of craziness and everything like that. But we'll find out what folks have to say about that story as well. And Ebola hospital in the Democratic Republic of Congo, second Ebola treatment center set on fire in epicenter of disease's outbreak. So police fired shots to disperse angry crowds at Democratic Republic of Congo's Ebola treatment center. So definitely that's a lot going on. I think that they are definitely having climbing victims in that particular African nation and all in those lines. And Turkish riot police used tear gas at opposition headquarters. So that's something else that we're hearing as well. So Turkish police force ousted opposition out of headquarters as their crisis deepens as well. Like I said, you're going to bring in Rick Rosner out of California, bring
Hello.
in James Eid, also out of California, and I couldn't remember if James served or not, and Dr. Sharif out of Bangladesh. So we've got all kinds of folks.
I'll throw some numbers at you really quickly. So this marks the beginning of the 4th week of national average gas prices being over $4.50 a gallon. But I expect it to drop below $4.50 tomorrow because it's been slowly losing like a penny a day, and we're right at $4.50. So it's still going to be expensive, but that $4.50 mark's going away. If you look at Polymarket, we're at the end of May, and people betting expect inflation will hit about 4.3 annual rate for May, 4.3%, which is bad. The price of oil per barrel is $91, which is down about 5% on very guarded optimism about these peace talks. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see how that all plays out and everything like that. Apparently, Pope Leo XIV made a historic apology for the Holy See's own role in legitimizing slavery, because we do know that the Catholic Church was involved in slavery and everything like that. So I did see that story. And on sad news, I did see that there was a train explosion in Pakistan, and at least 14 were killed in a bombing attack that derailed a train in Pakistan. So it looks like
I have one more thing. The Drudge headlines. Drudge headline says an AI whistleblower says that the tech bros are trying to create a machine god. That is, the lunatics who own the AI companies are trying to. That's some disturbing language, and language that disturbs even the Pope. The Pope says, look out for AI, that we might be creating a second Tower of Babel. That is a human edifice that challenges God. So
Yeah, that's definitely a scary thing going on in there. I'm glad that Jim's joined us. He's not joined us from California in a while, but it was Memorial Day. Did you serve? I couldn't remember if you served or not.
No, but it is a somber day. Remembering people, yes.
yeah, people on X are saying, "Do you really wish people a happy Memorial Day?" And no, I mean people do because they don't think. But yeah, it's not a day of happiness. It's a day of remembering the some who gave all. I think is the term. Some, all gave some gave all. We World War II, we lost 400,000, 410,000 were killed. Hundreds, thousands, maybe millions more were wounded. Civil War, we lost 3% of America to the Civil War. That was our worst. Anyway.
Yeah, and I know that it's not been as many, but there have been, unfortunately, a few that have been added to that ranks in the Iran war and everything.
Well, that's why these wars of choices are so infuriating, because, we didn't have to do this, and then people have lost their lives because of it, including school children attending school. These types of tragedies can be avoided. And it's a day like Memorial Day when we're supposed to remember those who served. And we think about those serving to preserve the Union, serving to preserve democracy, serving for higher causes than themselves. And we have a petulant child in the United States acting on a whim and deciding he's going to do this or he's going to do that. And who knows what he's going to do tomorrow. But what kind of state of affairs is it when we're talking about opening up the Strait of Hormuz and we trust the Iranian sources more than we do our White House?
Yeah,
our White House says it's eminent and the Iranian sources says no. Well, guess what? It's not eminent. Trust them more than us.
But the military does some really cool stuff. Like Hegseth flew a helicopter over a NASCAR race over the weekend.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
My confidence in him is soared. Yeah.
These
are the types of things that are designed to wow the public and not do anything constructively, because it's the policies that we have to change. And the only way we're going to change the policies is if we throw the bums out, because I've never been as disgusted by the decisions of our leaders and the tones that they're setting. We have a president in the White House, and the kids today growing up are listening to him call women pigs. They're listening to him call, people names, and he's just legitimizing and normalizing such bad behavior. And so
you missed today's. You missed today's message from Trump, where he wished everybody happy Memorial Day to everybody, including the Democrats.
Well, speaking of the Democrats, that's what he calls them and everything along those lines. I did see that Mike Johnson was on some news medias and everything like that, and he is trying to make Mamdani, Mike Johnson is the boogeyman of the day and everything along those lines, because he was saying that there are a bunch of Mamdani type candidates that are running around the country, and I've seen some things on Twitter and Facebook where folks are actually saying we would like to see a Mamdani candidate in some of the deep red states like Florida and California. So they are not necessarily taken to this message, but he was basically saying that Mamdani is one of these group of socialist Marxist types that are around the country that are doing this horrible thing to the country and all on those.
Well, I've got news for Mike Johnson. He's talking about a guy who represents a new voice. We've had enough of the Mike Johnsons of the world. Let's get rid of them.
Mike Johnson's only got about 8 months left in office, because the Republicans are going to lose control of the House, and so he'll lose his position. And as far as Mamdani is mayor of the most capitalist city in the U.S. Frickin' New York is where money goes to frolic, right? It's like, okay, so Mamdani sets up 5 grocery stores out of hundreds where you can get like guaranteed low prices. It's not going to wreck capitalism. It's like, when people complain about California and like our taxes and everything. I'll ask Jim, I bet you your taxes aren't very high, right? Mine aren't. We've lived here forever, right?
Well,
and it's not a socialist. What's that?
I pay them happily. It's a
Yeah,
wonderful place.
and they're not super high, and especially property taxes. We have some of the lowest property taxes in the country. And
Well, speaking of that, and speaking of
California, it's not socialism that makes California a tough place to live in. It's all the successful people, the millionaires and billionaires who drive up housing prices. So, the calling California like commies and all that is just ridiculous horseshit.
it sounds like it. But speaking of California, I did see that Governor Newsom has submitted a request to President Trump for an emergency declaration to support response efforts in Orange County and everything like that. So crews to conduct an all-night mission to confirm if an explosion threat has been eliminated. So it looks like there was a crack in the Garden Grove chemical tank, and they are saying that they may be reducing the explosion risk. But what's your take on that? I think you might be close to that area.
Yeah, 50,000 people have been evacuated because of what's in this tank. Methyl something. It's anytime you got a methyl in there, makes you a little nervous. And so they've evacuated people for like more than a mile around, I think. And I don't know, but it's a ton of people. The population of a small city has been moved out, and like people are showering at local gyms and taking shelter in high schools. Sasha wants to say something.
Yes, Sasha.
I'd like to say something very important. It's became quite unnoticed and nobody talks about it. But the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen Yang, he approached all his colleagues, multi-billionaires and trillionaires and all that, and he asked them, please start paying taxes. Don't try to evade and hire all these highly paid consultants. Just pay what you have to. You are American CEOs. Please pay. That actually is unnoticed. Nobody ever talks about, nobody discussed it, because all these highly paid tax consultants, they are holding for their $1 million jobs, and they will be thrown on the street if that will take place. And I think, you know what? I think it will take place, because it will be more and more difficult to justify how the guy makes billions of dollars and paying $750 in taxes. It will become more and more difficult.
And people move to California to make their fortunes and then move away because of the taxes. It's ridiculous. If you make your money here,
that's going on.
Here.
I know that at least a few of you, I know Jim is, and I think Sasha is. I'm not sure about you. Rick is. But what is our thoughts? Because I have actually heard about this on Chris Cuomo's show earlier this morning and everything. But there's a lot of backlash over Galindo's comments over in the Texas Democratic runoffs, where apparently she was saying that there need to be prison for American Zionists and everything along those lines. So is this going to cost her the elections, and is this kind of rhetoric going to hurt the Democrats in a state that they were having a chance of possibly winning, even though that is a very deep red state?
So, all I know is that this lady is like some kind of anti-Semitic, tone-deaf lunatic.
Yeah. I hope she doesn't win.
Yep, then I can see that. Hopefully she won't win.
And Tallarico said he won't endorse her in her because she's.
And I hope he does win.
Yeah. And the Tallarico, Paxton's going to win the primary because Trump endorsed him. Paxton is a godless adulterer versus Tallarico, who I think is a pastor. So we'll see if.
Well, speaking of seeing things along those lines, I did see that a group of Vietnam vets are opposing Trump's arch, and they're saying that that's about being loyal to the country. So there's a multi-day rally going on today to protest the Trump-fueled arch plans. And a hideous thing to have is what a D.C. area group is saying, is they're pushing back on Trump's plan for an arch near Memorial Circle. And even Charlie Sykes is slamming Trump's arch as a monument to his massive ego. And definitely he's had a lot of monuments to his ego these days and everything along those lines. So,
Because I see
Something
Sasha.
very important I'd like to tell you about the Trump's plan to end the war in Iran,
Yes.
so-called peace plan, and whatever it is. I was watching future markets for the last 24 hours or so, and the market is moving up. S&P 500 futures are moving up. They're plus, the latest I saw, is 431 points. However, I'm planning as soon if the market will hold on to these gains and the market will open high on tomorrow, I will sell everything what I have. Everything, nothing will be left because this is a bogus peace plan. There is no peace, there is no plan. It's he's trying to prop up the market. That's all. I think he started a day earlier than he should have, because now today all this is unraveling. Oh, there is no peace, there is no plan. Iran is not confirming anything, any point of the plan. Well, the futures are still up, but I'm not sure that they will end today in a plus side.
Even if there is a peace plan, there's nothing in it about Iran's nuclear material. They said that'll be discussed later. So it doesn't solve the nuclear part at all.
So the only point is to reopen a Strait of Hormuz. So open, please, Strait of Hormuz. But they were open before the American-Israeli invasion. They were always open. Idiots.
Declare victory.
So, I mean,
You're right now to get us back where we were before the war.
this whole war is because Trump relied on his intuition and bad intel and being cajoled by Netanyahu into thinking that it would be over in a week, that any kind of push would tip over the regime. And anybody who's got half a brain could see that it wouldn't have been that easy, that the regime has been in place for 47 years.
Wait a sec. His instincts are even worse than his intel. Look at the man. He's a pathetic loser all his life. He was losing in every and any business, whatever he touched. He is just an ultimate loser. So why do you think that he, who failed any business, any venture, he would be successful on international scene fighting enemies like Iran?
You only have half the picture. Trump makes a ton of money off of failing. When his businesses fail, he makes money by avoiding paying taxes. When Trump sets up a casino, he pays himself a huge salary. The casino goes bankrupt. His investors lose all their money, and he gets tens of millions of dollars of losses that he can carry forward year after year to credit against profits. So he never pays taxes.
Okay,
so
that's enough from us, guys. Let's hear from Sharif. Sharif, you had your hand up earlier.
Yeah, thank you. This is interesting discussions. If you want to know from Bangladesh, we have our Eid vacation started, as well as right now I want to say that Bangladesh has energy-related challenge, but our Prime Minister office, as well as our business organizations and NGOs, they are trying to solve this energy problem. And most important thing is that, like, as USA is a great ally for Bangladesh, Bangladesh trying to develop a new energy policy and strategy with USA and with Japan. So my institutions, we are trying to contribute in that way. There is a funny news I want to share from Bangladesh. There is a bull from Bangladesh. Do you see this news? This is very viral news right now in internet. The Donald Trump bull is viral. It's a 700 kilometers albino buffalo raised at Naranganj. It's outside Dhaka. The bull gained international fame due to its hairstyle because it's look like Donald Trump. So we have our Eid vacations and everything. Yeah. Do you want to see this bull?
Yes.
Yeah, let's just see it.
Okay. I want to share these things with you. Let's see.
Yeah, see if we can share the screen.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay.
Okay. Hold on. I'm bringing it up.
I'm all tingled with excitement here.
With excitement.
Yes, this bull. You can.
Oh. Yeah, I get it. I can see it.
Yes. This. Yes. This bull like Donald Trump. It's hairstyle. It's hairstyle like
Ah.
Trump.
Yes,
So
yes.
It's orangey.
huge attractions, huge global attractions. Is even in the internet, you see that the local media and everything saying this is Trump, Donald Trump, and its price go up because many business organizations they want to buy this bull, as well as Iran actually do some troll.
Yeah.
With this bull regarding this Trump. So it's become internet sensations and
funny.
it's becoming.
I can see that. I can see the
Many
hairstyle
people-
and everything like that. Yes, that was some good news and some funny
Yeah.
news. I have a question for you, Jim and Rick, and anybody wants to jump on it. But is it just me, or have we seen more attacks on the White House than we've seen in the past? Because over this weekend, an armed man was killed after firing near the White House. Apparently, he had been trespassing before, and I think that there was somebody else that was injured in this gunshots that were fired after they tried to get into the White House. But this is like what, the fourth or the fifth attempt to try to get toward the White House, and I guess some people are thinking that.
Well, I mean, this guy was purely mentally ill. This guy had, he's dead, but he bounced off the cops a million times before. He was just a nut who got a hold of a gun. You don't need to make excuses about the politics of it. This is purely mental illness.
Yeah, it's January 6th, the attack on the Capitol, that I want people to remember.
Yes, definitely. And there's that whole fund that he's trying to get folks to
And
alleviate.
outrage. Yeah, he talks
That's-
about loyalty. He's a loyal person. Ha ha ha.
So, I mean, most threats to the president we never hear about unless it's part of a report that comes out years later, because the Secret Service doesn't want to make every attack known or threat because they don't want to encourage people. I think if you look up Obama, he had dozens of threats against him, at least. That's probably true of most, if not all, modern presidents.
Yeah, it probably is true. I'm hoping I can get one of the guests that I saw on the Cuomo show and everything like that, and it will be a lighthearted discussion, because apparently there's a gentleman that has written a book about the founding fathers and what they had in their recipe book and everything like that. So I'm hoping I can get this gentleman that wrote a book. I think it's called Cooking in Congress or something like that. But it definitely looks at some of the founding fathers, because it had like Martha Washington, some like almond butter that she put together, and some like the other dish that was like a pastry dish and everything like that. But it looked very it looked kind of messy, but it also looked very tasty and everything. But on a more serious note, I did see that the New Jersey governor, Mikey Sherrill, says she wants access to the Delaney Hall ICE facility because of some protests. There's a hunger strike continuing at the New Jersey ICE Detention Center, and the Congress members have visited and everything like that, because even Kim and Menendez visited the detention center as detainees. And it
I have
was
some crazy, but before we move on, I have some crazy numbers.
Yes.
So the Syracuse University keeps track of the number of people prosecuted for making threats against the president. So under Clinton, 343 people prosecuted. Under G.W. Bush, 383. Under Obama, 213. In Trump's first term, 68 people prosecuted. So there are always a lot of people at least saying some stuff that gets them in trouble.
Gets them in trouble, gets them interested in that. Just finishing that story, said the pregnant ICE detainee's wife was leading the standoff as tensions are boiling over at New Jersey's Delaney Hall, and that was earlier today. But I wish Steve was here because he's one of our folks that's got India background, but maybe even Sharif has got some ideas around this as well. It looks like Rubio is a leading presidential candidate. I think I've heard that Vance says he doesn't want to be president, but Rubio is going to visit India, which we know is a major ally. And he's aiming to rebuild trust between Washington and Delhi during the first official visit to India. So is this a campaign to get him more in the line as a candidate and a leading candidate, because he's supposed to meet Modi during the India visit with energy high on the agenda? And I know a lot of times we talk about energy and energy companies here, even on this network. So what is our thoughts around Rubio going to visit India, and does this make him even more of a leading candidate?
So Rubio is maybe the one member of Trump's cabinet who will be least damaged by having worked for Trump. That he's been a fairly visible Christian for his entire political career. He seems to be the one who feels the worst if you look at photos of him in the Oval Office. And yesterday, I forget what he said, but somebody said some racist crap. And Rubio stepped forward and said, there are stupid people everywhere, and that includes the United States, which made me, I don't want Rubio to be president. I'd rather have a Democrat in there, but it made me optimistic that Rubio seems to be getting ready to, at some point, maybe step out from under the thumb of Trump.
Hey, Rick, speaking of people stepping out of the thumb, and all along those lines, you mentioned that Rubio had this comment about stupid and everything like that. It's a very common word. People don't like to use it because it can also have some derogatory comments and everything like that. We were talking about mental health, which I know Jim is very big on, and everything like that. But even Tillis was saying that some of these decisions by Trump are stupid and that they could cost the Republicans the election. So he's been more emboldened now that he's decided not to run. Now, Trump is calling him a quitter and insulting him, but he's basically saying that some of these plans are very stupid and that they could cost the Republicans the election. So another case of stupid being used as a word to back Trump maybe into a corner and everything like that. But what is our thought?
Admirals and generals have used the word moron to describe Trump.
That is true.
His first Secretary of State, what's his name? Rex Tillerson, who used to run Exxon. Not a nice guy. A 100% gold-plated business prick, a hard-headed, lasted for a year and left calling Trump a fucking moron. So competent people, even people who are like as wildly capitalistic as you would want, think he's a dope.
Well, speaking of dopes, and this is another story that was coming out of South Carolina, just down from me and everything like that. But during Memorial Day weekend, there's a lot of activities that go on, and one of the popular activities is a bike fest. And a lot of times these bike fests end up in some sort of tragedy. And it was another case this past weekend because at least 19 were injured as a South Carolina stampede at the annual motorcycle rally. So it's an annual motorcycle rally. Sometimes it is black motorcycles, sometimes it's white motorcycles, but these folks seem to be there to have a big time party, and sometimes they get a little bit too carried away. So do they have those things in the West Coast? Because I know that here in the East Coast, we hear about it all the time, like around the Myrtle Beach area and around other parts of South Carolina and even North Carolina and down to Georgia.
Yeah. The Hollister bike annual bike festival is notorious in where I come from, around where I live. That's where my wife is from. And every year there's a beer infused festival. but yeah, it's always been a thing. I think in Montana it's a thing. So.
I'm sorry, are we talking motorcycle rally?
Motorcycle rallies, yes.
So I worked in for years. I was on the door at the Sagebrush Cantina, which is LA's biggest, fanciest biker bar, and it was a terrific place to work. We'd get 2,000 people in there on a Sunday. The whole front lot would be filled with like 80 or 100, $30,000 weekend warrior. You're a dentist Monday through Friday. On the weekends, you're a biker on your $25,000 custom Harley.
That makes sense and everything like that. I'm gonna get to some more serious news, but I did have a question about sports for Sasha in a minute, and all along those lines because it's a sport that I think he follows, if I remember correctly, and everything like that. But I did have a question for you because you asked the question earlier, and I'm still trying to figure out myself because you asked it in chat. I don't know how you miss a big elephant. See what I'm saying to your question in chat? I don't know how you miss a big elephant in the
How do you
middle
run
of
into
the
an elephant?
Yes.
Wouldn't you put on the brakes? Wouldn't you see it before you hit it?
I would think you would see it. It's a big animal. It's kind of like a rhinoceros. Elephants, they're not like easy to miss. I would think. But
Deers, yeah, they jump in front of you, but elephants, yeah.
yeah, they're not like deers. Deers do jump in front of you. We see that quite often here in the South and everything like that. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know you're a fan of soccer, Sasha, but I thought you were a
Yes.
fan of tennis as well. And I did see
Yes,
that
I
the
am.
tennis tournaments is going to start and everything like that. So we got a major tennis tournament that's going to start this
Clay.
weekend. Yeah, so
It's already underway. A lot of matches already finished. Tiafa won his first match just a few minutes ago.
But Sasha's also a music fan. Sasha sent out this very interesting video over
I
the
did see that.
weekend showing that, we revere Mozart, but that Glenn Gould, the musician composer, did a long discussion about how Mozart was a lazy composer who was kind of kitschy
not,
and crappy.
No, it's here I disagree. I
Okay,
agree.
well, I don't know shit about music, so you correct me.
Okay, I will correct you and many others. What happened is that Mozart, he was incredibly gifted child, prodigy. He was doing concerts all over Europe when he was 5, 6 years old. There's no doubt about that. He was a fantastic keyboard player, not so much as violinist. He hated violin and never, although his father was pushing him into violin, but he did never like it. Same with me, by the way. And then he, at the zenith of his powers as a music abilities is concerned in Vienna, he was very popular, a composer, pianist, teacher. He was making incredible amounts of money. It's just even scary to think. For example, for one concert, he had 6, 7 concerts a year. For one concert, he was making more, like 5, 6 times more money than his housekeeper for all year. So you can imagine that, plus money for operas and performances and conducting and teaching, and you just name it, he was making. Now, what's happened with all that money? You know that Mozart, he died. He was extremely poor. His wife couldn't pay 20 shillings to his doctor. And he was in common territory of the cemetery, and there were 3 more people in the same tomb. Now, Mozart had one problem. He loved to play a snooker. He was very good at snooker, but
Snooker's a form of billiards, right? Pool?
billiard, yeah. But in Europe, they play billiard actually much more than snooker. So a billiard, unfortunately, because he was infantile man. So he just, for a pleasure of playing strong opponents, he was choosing opponents who were a little bit better than he was. And all his money for concerts, for teaching, for his operas, everything he was losing on a billiard table. Everything. There was nothing left. Sometimes they didn't have money even to buy a bread. So for that reason, he had to compose very quickly and very something that the publishers will publish it anyway because it's Mozart. So they're not going to play all the tune to figure out whether it's good or not. It's Mozart. So he became very, um, um, how I would say, he lowered his musical standards substantially. So he would take a theme. Okay, so it's a theme. It's probably not much better or worse than other themes. And then he would use typical combinations of development, which he already used before. And he would just almost bring them from one piece to another. They're all his latest, or more than the latest, just well, last third of his life, all his piano sonatas and so on. They are extremely monotonous. They don't have a spark of a genius. They are like, if it wouldn't be a Mozart, not sure even if they would be published at all.
So you're saying he cranked out a bunch of slop because he got
Yeah.
hustled at billiards, at snooker. So that's a famous game where people like hustle people, where they set you up by playing badly and you think, oh, I'm going to win a ton of money off. And then they reveal their true skills and they kick your ass and take all your money.
Yeah,
It's an
that's
old story. It's a very old story, and it's a story of addiction. And people will lose everything, and they will prostitute themselves in various ways in order to. And it just sounds just like what Mozart did.
And it's a very modern story, because
It's
right
very
now there
familiar.
are probably more gambling addicts in America than ever before, because we've legalized gambling across the whole country.
Sports betting is insane. Yeah.
I have an online bookie. I don't bet much. I bet a few dollars a month on like political stuff. My online bookie has started giving me money because somebody has figured out, if you give somebody with a gambling tendency money, you will accelerate their gambling.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's an old story too. But we're also getting into the prediction market, which is now famous. And Trump is actually and Trump's family is making money off of the prediction markets. Follow the money with Trump, and the cryptocurrency and the prediction markets are where he's trying to make a ton of money.
Well, but the prediction markets are zero sum. So when Trump uses insider information to pump and dump, he's not just making money, he's taking money from honest gamblers, people who don't have inside information, and and so it's not just winning; it's making it's unfairly causing other people to lose.
And it turns out that these spikes and drops in oil prices, they can be predicted, because if you're Trump, you know when it's going to happen. And the select few that are in Trump's circle seem to be placing enormous bets in the direction that it does go in, and making enormous amounts of money at the expense of the average investor who doesn't have.
In the past, even insiders, they were trying to hide their actions, and they're using some intermediaries and so on. Trump himself, he doesn't hide anything. He has all his thousands of trades, winning trades based on what he's going to say. 2 minutes later, he is already in a trade. This is unheard of. This is a 100% corruption, a matter of all corruption of all the time.
Have we lost our ability to be scandalized by this?
I think people have not paid attention to the craziness he does. I mean, the man is up at 3 a.m. doing all kinds of tweets and everything along those lines, and people are not paying attention. I think there's a group of folks that, like he said when he was running, he could, he could shoot somebody at Times Square and nobody would pay any attention, or something along those lines.
He wouldn't lose any votes.
Folks that have that mindset and everything along those lines. I've got some good news for you, Rick, because I did it over the weekend and everything like that. So you'll be glad to know that the issue of Naked at Night that you were worried about is now a 2-hour show. So I did cut out that 1 hour that you were.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So what happened is, so I'm liberal, and my show is where I argue against my artist buddy. He paints somebody's portrait while we argue. And he's very conservative. Whatever bullshit they pump out on Fox News and worse, like OAN, and just like, Lance, his eyes are occupied doing art, but his ears are open to. He listens to every frickin' conservative podcast there is. So I stupidly brought up the massive protests the white guys had in England that was anti-Islam, and I forgot how frickin' virulently anti-Islam Lance is, and we got into a screaming argument, and I said fuck more times in like 40 minutes than I've ever said before. I was super pissed. We got super pissed at each other, and the whole segment, the whole hour, was just filled with Lance's anti-Islamic hate. And so so much so that I said this show can never be broadcast again because it's not fair. It impugns the 2 billion. You stepped in with that number, Mark. There are 2 billion Muslims in the world, and Lance would have it that they've all been steeped in an evil doctrine, and I was, getting really pissed. But like, you can't impugn 2 billion people.
If you spot it, you got it. That's what I always say. If he thinks if you spot it, you've got it. It's a saying that we say that when people accuse someone else of something, that it's their own problem.
However, I don't believe that there are 2 billion Islamic people in the world. It's much less.
All right, I was saying 1.4 billion. I don't know. We can go to AI.
Wikipedia is what told me 2 million, and there's different types of Muslims.
That's add up to a lot of people, though.
Regardless, it's like maybe 1/5. One person in 5 in the world, roughly, is at least nominally Muslim. And most, like people belonging to any religion or no religion, the vast majority of people are just wanting to live their lives. Everybody wants what everybody frickin' wants, which is to live in peace, eat good food, sleep in comfortable circumstances, get laid every once in a while, be entertained by their phones or by their TVs. And it's only, fringe.
It's usually the fringes in anything that are the problem and all along those lines. But getting off that topic, but it's a topic that you talk about quite often, Rick, and I've heard you talk about it, Jim, as well. But I want to get to this notion. There was a slang, I think a humorist said it in '74, called "the pig and the python," and it's this notion that baby boomers are strangling the economy they built because they refuse to move and or retire. So
or die,
or
die.
So, yeah, we're living longer.
We don't want to die either. I'm a boomer. Everybody here is either boomer or boomer adjacent. And people, I use this, I say this statistic a million times. People 45 years of age and older in America have 94% of the assets. Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, there's Gen Alpha. Gen Alpha are like 12 and 15-year-olds, but none of these later generations, they can't afford houses. Our house, my wife and I worked in TV at a time when that was lucrative. And so we have a decent sized house that's filled with inherited furniture, made out of mahogany and cherry wood, beautiful furniture. That furniture is now virtually worthless because younger generations, they don't have room for a 12-foot china hutch or an 8-foot, dining room table. They live in a 350 square foot studio apartment with 2 roommates. They've created an extra little space for somebody to sleep by hanging up a bed sheet. Right. So, Gen Z doesn't have any money. That means they can't. We have a baby shortage because Gen Z, understandably, doesn't want to couple up and make somebody pregnant.
Rick, back up for a second, because you have said this several times. I got to ask you about this because being one that is in their 60s and in the dating space and all along those lines, I can't tell you how many times that I go onto these sites and I see a lot of people that are single, but they've also got multiple kids. So there must be some sex going on, because every time that I go into these sites, the women, I would say the vast majority of the women say that they have kids, and you don't have kids unless you've had sex. So that's just
Yeah, all right. So the people are all right. People are empowered. Women are more empowered now. If you got married in 1910 and your husband was a dick, you wouldn't necessarily divorce him. He may have been the primary breadwinner. You maybe lived on the Lower East Side of New York under tough circumstances. There was no getting divorced, even if your husband knocked you around. Now women are more empowered. They know how they should be treated. They have the ability to work on their own. And, and people, there's a high percentage of people who have kids out of wedlock now, and there's a lot of divorce. And
there are a lot of single women with children, which is kind of my point and everything like that. I wanted to get to something that I know both Jim and Sasha are big into and everything along those lines, which is that there is a company that is about to go public and everything along those lines, and they're saying that Elon's best friend could make more than $100 billion because SpaceX is getting ready to have a record-breaking initial public offering. So I'm going to ask the two of you, are you going to be investing in this IPO? Because SpaceX has got a public IPO and everything like that, and they're saying it's about to join a growing constellation of public companies that are going this route. So I know that y'all are into things like NVIDIA and other stuff, but will y'all be making a run at SpaceX as it is now going to have its initial public offering?
Absolutely not.
No.
SpaceX is not a new company. They've been around, I think, from 2002. So there must be a track record, what their earnings, what is the product, what they're making and developing and so on. So there will be a lot of scrutiny of that. And the only reason why they're going public, if they're so great and profitable, why do they need to go public, is to help the Trump's and say, what's his name, Musk's friends, to rescue them and get them out of their positions and make some money. That's the only reason. There's only one reason for them to go public. There is no second, third.
Is to cash in. Sasha's right. I just saw a tweet yesterday that showed that a lot of famous companies that went public hit their highest price in the week after they went public, and then they just declined because so the founders cash in, and then everybody else suffers by watching their investment slowly evaporate. AI says this: investing in SpaceX is highly polarizing, offers unprecedented technological leadership and growth, but carries immense risks due to an astronomical valuation and a high capital intensity, which I guess means that they're going to spend a lot of money and they're going to blow up a lot of rocket ships, and whether it ever makes money at some, I don't know what the PE ratio is. Is it 50? Is it?
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
But you're very unlikely to get your money back unless you got some kind of sweetheart early deal.
It's the newest, brightest, shiny object. Don't pick it up.
Yeah, don't pick it up. That makes sense. But speaking of newest, shiny, brightest object, and it was sad news in the world of business and everything along those lines. But it was sad news, but it was also part of a trend that I used to hate and everything along those lines. And I still hate it to some degree. But there is a major franchise that is known for putting their offices in poor areas, and I know that you know where I'm going with this, probably, Jim, and everything like that. But 7-Eleven was known, as well as a number of other convenience stores, for putting their franchises in poor, disenfranchised areas. And unfortunately, their leader just recently passed, that being Toshifumi Suzaki. But he was seen as Japan's god of convenience stores, and he just passed at 93. But I was never a big fan of those kind of stores going into the poor neighborhoods and everything along those lines. So I just wanted your thoughts, one, about this business leader, but also about that notion, because that's been one of the things that has always frightened me. I think it's frightened you as well, Jim, because we've had this discussion before.
Yeah, but I did find comfort in it when I was in Tokyo to see one. So I
Well,
can get
in some
got my
countries,
record.
7-Elevens are higher end than they are here.
Exactly. It's in Canada, for example. We have 7-Eleven, but I would not say that there are some in disadvantaged areas or so on. They're like almost anywhere, and I think they're doing quite well. I'm not purchasing anything, but still.
So
But
that's part of the food desert
Right.
problem.
exactly,
where-
That's what I was
exactly.
told.
so in some neighborhoods, you'd have to drive miles to get to a legit supermarket where you might be able to find like, a decent piece of fruit or vegetable, a head of broccoli or something.
Yeah, and 7-Elevens carry cheap calories that are not nutritious necessarily. So this is the discussion that Mark and I have had about food deserts and going into those.
California then used to have a chain of stores called 99-cent only stores, and these were pretty good. Where you go in and there'd be some like weird offerings, but you could get cheap vegetables. Maybe they weren't the most beautiful vegetables, but you could get cheap versions of everything. Anyway, they're out of business, which is unfortunate.
Speaking of that and everything, and coming back to the feds and our good friend Trump, because we got Kevin Warsh as Fed chair, and they're saying that Trump and Warsh's fates are now tied for better and or worse, and investors are dropping bold Fed rate cut signals to Warsh and everything like that. So what is our thoughts around Kevin Warsh as the Fed chair? I know for a long time, the past chair, he said he wouldn't get rid of him, but he did, and now we've got this new chair. So what is our thoughts about this chair, and will we see some actions from the Feds that could be good for the economy?
The economic basis for federal rate cuts is not there. Nevertheless, there is an incredible amount of political pressure to cut them. And cutting them will help the average consumer. Your mortgage might be lower. The ability to start businesses might be improved. So there's a lot of logic in behind cutting Fed rates, and I've been an advocate for it in the past. But the economic now, we have inflation now, and
so even without a rate cut, inflation's year-over-year inflation is going to break 4%. Within a couple of weeks, we're going to see the May numbers, and those May numbers, according to anybody who's watching, predicting, expected to 3.8% for April, likely to go to 4.3% year-over-year inflation for May. And yeah, it's a terrible time to cut rates because that adds to inflation, but it may happen if this guy is Trump's bitch because it gooses the stock market ahead of the midterms.
If inflation goes up, rates go up. That's been the historical pattern. Like cutting them would be counterintuitive, economically speaking, and cause more problems than they solve. But again, it's the political decision making that's going to drive it. And it's going to be, he's trying to do everything he can to avoid massive losses in the midterms, including distracting you. There's the Epstein files. So I know I'll start a war in Iran. There's this or something else. I know I'll abduct the president of Venezuela. Something else is happening. Maybe I'll take over Cuba. So we never know what Trump is going to do next. And it's never for the right reasons.
Let's see. So what was the Dow when Trump took office?
This is a be careful here because both Obama inherited the housing crisis from Bush,
right,
and then handed a booming economy and a booming stock market to Trump. So right. Be careful because Biden also did the same thing. He handed something.
But here's what Trump will say. So I looked it up. The Dow was at 43,500 the day he took office. If he gets this Fed chairman to cut interest rates, we could see the Dow hit 52,000 in July, August, and then frickin' Trump says woo woo the stock market. We've hit more highs while I've been president than ever before, and I am great for the economy. Even though
he's great for Wall Street, but he's not great for Main Street. The people in Main Street.
Speaking of being grateful, Yeah. Speaking of being great for Wall Street, and we're getting wrapped up in about another 3 to 5 minutes and everything like that. I was talking to
That's
one of my
right.
neighbors and everything along those lines, and they were talking about the fact that they live here in Durham, where I live at, but they work in Charlotte, so they actually almost have to have 2 apartments in order to maintain their job market. So I was wondering, are you seeing that also in California, where people might be living in one area because it's cheaper, but then working in another area? Because he was literally telling me,
Absolutely.
Well, sure.
Absolutely. And it's a quality of life issue, all the commutes. Jacoby, you were going to say
I mean, LA is the land of 90-minute commutes. So is Silicon Valley, probably even worse than LA, where you might have a 2-hour commute each way because you can't afford $5,000 a month for a share of an apartment. You know, we have these bedroom communities. We've got Moore Park. We've got, you know,
and that's
also,
what we call them, bedroom communities. That's where you sleep.
Yeah, and that's basically what this guy was saying, because he was living.
Work.
Yeah, he was working in Charlotte and living in the Durham area, either Charlotte or just outside of Charlotte in South Carolina. But I know that he was working here, and I mean living here, but working elsewhere, many miles away, and everything like that. So that's definitely a common thing. Jacoby, you going to make a comment or something along those lines? That's all good.
I was just going to say the stock market is always really going to go up, but what you have to look at is the rate of growth, and the rate of growth is different under the presidents. And you can see Trump had a slower rate of growth than under Biden. And that's where you have to really, but people aren't going to understand that. That's why he only talks about the number and says, hey, this number is here. Well, yeah, the number is always going to go up, but the rate of growth.
Artificial intelligence companies driving the numbers.
But there's also, it's another boomer problem, because boomers have all the money, and boomers will continue to invest in the stock market. Boomers are to a large extent protected from risk. My wife, the house I live in, that we live in, it's been paid off for more than a decade. So we don't have to worry about losing our house. So we can throw money into the stock market and, you know, and keep pumping it up. It doesn't help anybody who's not a frickin' boomer.
Yeah, but the problem is again, it goes down to who you're speaking with. And we speak on a different level, and we have to remember and be cognizant that they're not thinking about, oh, well, the boomer this. When you get into the macro, the minutia of it and trying to look at these little ins and outs, no, they just hear the number. That's all they care about. The number's high.
All the cyber bros, all the young bros who invest in cyber, in Bitcoin, all that, they all think they're going to become multimillionaires with the next, you know, couple deals.
Yeah,
we paid off our house too, Rick. But the problem is I fell in love with snooker, so I still have some financial worries.
We still have some financial worries and everything like that, and you didn't run into an elephant. I did have a last question, then we'll get ready to get out of here and everything like that. I have never heard of this chain, so it must be a California chain, but apparently they are facing a class action from U.S. workers over their closed stores and everything like that, and apparently it's a Chipotle rival, but maybe Guzman and Gomez is a West Coast restaurant, because I've never heard of this restaurant, but apparently their restaurant staffers were protesting a no-notice closing, and it looks like they're going to be exiting the U.S. market, so I don't think they were on the East Coast.
Before we finish, S&P 500 futures lost about 20% of their gains. So this is exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Trump wasted a day. He should have announced the deal.
He announced it too early, because he announced the deal. Oil prices dropped 5%, but is the oil market even open today?
No.
Nothing's
No,
open
so
today.
he should have waited a day, because it's gonna the little pump that Trump likes to do is going to evaporate before the market's open.
No, wait.
Oil
Oil markets are open, if not in US and elsewhere. The problem is that what he needs oil to go down, so the stock market will go higher.
Right.
Now, if oil will go down, stock market is closed, and then it will come back to same level, there will be no gains on stock market. That's a problem.
Yeah.
And also you got to remember, there is no deal.
There's no deal. There will be no deal at all. You see,
Listen to the Iranians, not us.
Iranians are trying to extract as much pain on United States as possible. They're not interested in deal. They're not interested in peace. They're not interested. Pain, extract pain, make them all painful. That's all what they're playing for. So
Yeah, the Iranian government, they're bad guys, but they have a sense of humor, and they will string Trump along for their own amusement.
Well,
And
the
they've been showing
thing
that.
is, as they're stringing them along, they're legitimately playing chess because they're stringing them along. They're reconstituting the whole drone program, all the ones that they're missing out on. And it's cheap to get them rebuilt. And they just made 20 some odd billion dollars because when they sold that one oil tanker, and those drones are only $5,000 to $6,000 to make, something like that. So you're looking at reconstituting that program.
Yeah, and not only is Trump a checker player, he's a bad checker player.
Yeah,
So-
Trump's not even know how to play chess.
He's
That
playing
man's
checkers,
probably
he's playing
playing.
backgammon.
He ain't even playing backgammon. Trump is
No,
trying to figure out
exactly.
what. Yeah, he trying to figure out what game he's trying to play.
All right, have a solemn Memorial Day, remembering.
Everybody have a great Memorial Day and everything like that. I know some people will be watching sports. Hey, you tell me just really quickly, it looks like there's a couple of series that might as well be over because I think the Knicks have pretty much won, and I think the Golden Knights have pretty much won as well because they're both up 3-0. Now, the other series, including the one with the Hurricanes, those could be tight series in Oklahoma and San Antonio. So I think we know at least one of the teams that'll be in both of those playoffs unless a miracle happens and everything like that because they're both up 3-0. So I don't see a miracle happening, but I could be wrong.
Rick
No,
and I have
those two are
to
like-
take a nap.
Look at that. See ya.